we can make you the CEO of Parent. I was like, no, I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to earn it.
Where can I learn to become a CEO or be a better CEO?
When I first became CEO in 2015, I would just call, hey, you're CEO of ABC Engineering. Can I buy you lunch so I can pick your brain? And these were our competitors. And every single one of them, of course.
I did the same thing to you, and you did return the favor, and you did meet with me.
The burden that we carry is we can limit the growth of the company by not growing. That's tremendous pressure.
Yeah.
So we have to continue to grow. I say the thing is focus on your job now. Relationships.
Be present.
Be present. Servant leadership is a perfect description. Of course, I didn't coin that, but servant leadership, because you have to set the vision and the goal, okay? And then you get the heck out of the way.
Hello there. Welcome to The Build Up, a podcast by Procon Consulting. I'm your host, Q Jung. We have a very special guest here for you today, someone that I consider my friend, my mentor, someone that I look up to, CEO of a multidisciplinary engineering consulting company in the local Washington, D.C. area. I want to welcome Young Ho Chang from ATCS. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Q. This is great. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, thank you. And, I've been meaning to I'm really excited about this because I've been really wanting to have this conversation with you. I don't know if you remember several years ago, you had sort of gathered up a lot of Korean-American engineering CEOs in the local area, all extremely successful. And you had conducted dinner at Basin, at our local sort of restaurant. But I was just so impressed and so immersed in the conversation. I kept on thinking that day, wow, like the richness of our conversation and all the things we talked about. I was like, everybody knows about you and all your accolades. They can just search you up, but they don't really know. I'm hoping that I can shed some light into some of your background, your story. I don't know if you remember that day. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, first of all, thanks for coming. And, sometimes being a CEO is somewhat lonely, Of course, you're busy. You have a lot of people, interaction and meetings and so forth. And on top of it, being a Korean-American CEO in the engineering space is unique. And we're all in this region, right? So I was thinking, what a great opportunity for us to just share. We don't even have to talk about work. We don't even talk about, teaming up on projects, but just share our experience. And, like all four of us, we all had like different life stories, yet we have commonality, right? And I thought, same. I'm glad you said that because I found it to be an amazing, enriching conversation.
I like the way you started the conversation, the dinner that night. We all kind of shared our sort of our journey, our story. And I thought that maybe we can start there with you and just kind of sharing your story and maybe recreating some of the rich conversation we had that night.
Well, I'm a little older than you, so it could be a long story. So how do you want me to start?
I mean, I know you're from the local area. Yeah. You immigrated to this country. I think that's important. I guess it resonates with me because you and I have had similar backgrounds. Right. Obviously, we're not the same, but it's something that I look up to because I know that you're older and someone that inspires me personally. So
yeah, and I love your story also. So we immigrated as a family in 1973. So my father, a little bit different on certain aspect of the immigrant story. He worked for the U.S. Embassy, so he had an opportunity to come here with coworkers and so forth. So. Yeah, it was very nice. I was very excited. I was, 8 years old, 9 years old, and we moved to Falls Church. And we moved on Halloween Day.
Oh my goodness.
And so, of course, in Korea, there's no Halloween,
Yes,
right?
uh-huh.
So you start seeing all these people show up in masks, like, what is going on here, right? So that was very interesting. And, that was, 51 years ago.
Wow.
And I pretty much lived up here in Northern Virginia, except to go to school. And, this is home, right? This is where I was raised, and, this is where I'm raising my family as well.
In the Korean American community, you're kind of, I don't want to say pressured, but there is this this understanding that school is going to be very important for you. How did you land in engineering? Of all the, I guess, things that was, I'm sure, was presented in front of you.
My father, as a typical immigrant father, said we had 3 boys in the family and 1 daughter, and my older sister. And I hope no one takes offense to this. Like, he was like, okay, daughter, go get married somewhere, right? And 3 boys, you're going to be an engineer, doctor, and a lawyer.
Yep.
Like, that was kind of like the creed, right? I was like, oh, okay. So, and of course, in high school, being, rebellious stage of your life, I said, I'm doing anything but engineering. So when I went to tech, I love economics, believe it or not. The whole theory and idea of economics and global and macro and all
Trade-offs.
that. Yeah, I love that. So until I started taking classes, it was so boring. I quickly moved over to computer science because that was, back in the 80s, it was just starting to take off, like PCs. But that pretty much destroyed me. Programming and all, it just wasn't my personality. And I kind of stumbled into engineering. And I'm a little embarrassed to say this. I was like, what engineering is the easiest that I can pass and graduate? And someone told me, oh, civil is probably the easiest. It wasn't the easest.
Yeah,
So I
you
ended
got
up
duped for sure, because it was not the easiest.
It was not easy. I struggled through. But sometimes these things happen for a reason, and I just love civil engineering. I love what I do. After 37 years, I still get excited about doing the things I've been doing for 37 years.
Tell me a little bit about what you did right after college.
I interned over the summer while I was going to school with Virginia Department of Transportation as an inspector, field inspector. And I really liked it. Being out in the field, constructing bridges. I mean, who's not going to like that kind of stuff? So back in 1987, the economy was booming. I mean, there were job offers left and right, sort of like now, you kind of had the pick of the litter, if you will. But for some reason, VDOT really attracted me, and they had a great trainee program, and I went to work for VDOT. And all the other firms I interviewed, private firms, they said, go to VDOT, go through the training program. After you're done, come work for us because you get free training. So that's a great idea. I'll go in, go through my 2-year program, and then I'll go to the private sector, because of the image was private sector is what, where things are happening, right? And I stayed there for 11 years.
Wow.
And I loved it every single year, every single day.
Now, I know sometime during that period, you got your MBA at a certain school that we won't name on this show, UVA. There you go. I said it. But yeah, tell me about that sort of thought process there.
This is where, I think VDOT, back in the days, and I think they are still, was very progressive for a state DOT agency. And they wanted to develop emerging leaders. And they had this fellowship program. And that was the first year they did that. And they paid you while going to school.
Right.
And you had a choice between UVA and Virginia Tech. Now, you had to get in yourself. And, Virginia Tech, I had a son, 6-month-old son. Yeah. So I was basically commuting to Charlottesville. Say what you will, University of Virginia is a good school.
Oh, yeah, it's
good
an excellent
program.
School.
I did get my master's in engineering because VDOT would only pay for anything that's purely related to your program.
Now, did you think at any of those points in time that all that will kind of come together for you to now lead a major ENR 500 top engineering companies in the U.S. To be the CEO. Did you have that like objective, that foresight in mind?
I wish I had the foresight and kind of the vision to be able to kind of see all that. I really didn't.
It sort of like presented itself.
Yeah. And I think as years went on, I know this is probably heresy or something to say goal setting. I'm not sure if that's as important as people say. Like career goals, like set a goal to be the CEO, set a goal to be a partner and all that. I think it's certainly good.
So what do you say is something that people should be thinking about?
I say the thing is focus on your job now. Like do the best you can. Learn, not for like, I think you can learn for transactional purpose. Like if I do this, I'll get this job.
Right.
If I learn this skill, I'll get promoted, which is fair. I think it's a fair thing to think. I think, again, this is 37 years looking back because I didn't do any of that, right? But I just like knowing people, like getting to know you, Q, that opens up, things like this, relationships.
Be present.
Be present. Learn your stuff. Get along with your coworkers. Treat people well. I mean, these are like kindergarten stuff, right?
Right.
Like, I think if you do that well, things are just kind of like open up for you that you don't even imagine.
With that. I'm glad that you brought that up because I do think that in my experience in talking with a lot of young, aspiring to be leader people, it's right in front of them. Be good at what they do right in front of them. Right. Be actively engaged. Be present. Have established meaningful relationships because the relationships that you establish now are going to pay huge dividends as we each other grow and move up in our professional career. And I find that I've had most of my success when I got to my, middle-aged period in my life, right? Because when I was younger, the people that I've met, they're not big decision makers, but you can't lose sight of that. Right? Because they're the people that will become the future leaders. And so I think that's very good advice.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many instances of people I work with, people I supervise, people I work for early on in my career who have come back to somehow become like either my client, my colleague, or, for another firm. And these, our community is pretty small, as you know, right? And it always surprises me when people use sharp elbows to get ahead. Like, for what purpose? Maybe that one occasion you will, but all these things are kind of like, we're all linked together somehow.
I agree.
I'm so glad I treated people well, earlier in my career, because again, they become my clients.
Yeah, going back to the dinner that we had that night, I so much still appreciate that you went out of the way to bring all these people together.
I think if we look at what we do, especially in our role, is there an opportunity for us to do really great work for our clients? Treat our employees fairly. Treat them well. Support them, do well in terms of company performance, and serve our community. We have that opportunity as CEO. Like you're given that opportunity in Procon to be able to do more than great engineering. You guys do great work. We all know that. Can we all do even more? And that was kind of the intent of us getting together.
Yeah. So do you feel like that one of the motivations you get is that what you just talked about, which is to make an impact to people? Like, is that one of the things that motivates you?
Absolutely. That is it.
Yeah,
you
I
just
feel the same
hit
way.
the nail on the head. That's the only reason. It's not to say, hey, I want to design a great bridge today. I mean, that's part of it, But that's one element of what the core part is.
So your story is interesting. Your journey to the CEO path that you currently hold today at ETCS was essentially opened up because you were present, because you did everything that was asked of you. You took full advantage of the opportunities that were presented. But you've had 2 stints with ATCS.
Yes, right.
I want tell the audience, like, what was that like, and what was the circumstance? Just walk us through that story.
Got great memory. So during VDOT, hitting about 10 years, I didn't focus on my salary, and it's just like I love my work, and they kept giving me more work. Mm-hmm. It was very challenging, and then at about 10-year mark, 2 kids, thinking about their future, college, you start thinking, oh, maybe I need to, think about other things, And everyone said, you can do the same work in the private sector and make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So I'm focused on, okay, that makes sense. So I looked for a job, and my great friend and now business partner, John DePasquale, said, you should really talk to Bill. He's really going to do something with his firm, and you should be on the ground floor. So that's how it started, John. He was with me at VDOT, and of course now we're partners at ATCS. And Bill just inspired me, and he had a great vision. Gave me that opportunity, and if I can just say that, literally doubled my salary from my state government job. And I said, life is good. I'm set for life. This is great. So, and I started the transportation practice at ATCS, and it really started taking off. But I left after a year and a half. And honestly, the thing that made me leave is I think we were not aligned culturally. Culturally mean, how the kind of focus we should have as a company. Mm-hmm. And again, we were very successful.
So you decide to leave. Then what happened?
So I had this unique opportunity to be the director of transportation for Fairfax County. So I got appointed by the board, and that was a great job too. And when you work for local government, you're as close to the citizens as you can be, right? And I really enjoyed it. And they gave me amazing opportunities like running bus service. Like I ran a Fairfax Connector bus operation. Those are opportunities that I would have never thought.
And you're meeting people.
Yeah,
you're,
people,
again,
lobbyists, legislators.
Relationships.
Yeah. And really understanding how to influence policies and direction of the county.
So it seems like someone is preparing you for a bigger job. What happened next? Like, how did you get lured back to ATCS?
I know. That's very interesting. When I look back on how did that happen? So I think as a leader, you want to continue to innovate. You can want to continue to look for ways to improve, right? I did a lot of stuff in 5 years and totally reorganized the department, and our transit operation became one of the most improved in the country, different awards and things. But it was getting kind of repetitive. So I was kind of not officially, but looking, and somehow Bill's been keeping in touch. Mm-hmm. So, he asked me to meet, and kind of was the right time. And it was a 6-month discussion.
Mm. Now, what type of discussions were you guys having?
I wanted to make sure that we were aligned with what we want to do for the future of the company. And it was that important to have that alignment before I came on board. And he was agreeable. And I would give him all the credit because he challenged me. If you don't like the culture or you didn't like it, do something about it. Don't just complain about it and leave. Do something about it. So challenge accepted.
That sounds like a similar challenge that I oftentimes give to the leaders within my organization. Okay. I don't know if you find yourself doing that too. Yeah. Like, hey, sometimes we're not a perfect organization. Right. We're looking for people to step up and do something about it. But I love that.
Oftentimes when you give that opportunity, people step up. When they know that, What, you want me to do that? Yes, okay.
So what did you do?
So came in, we set a certain timeline for his retirement, and it took a little bit longer. It took 10 years. When he retired, the first thing I did was we all do the strategic planning. You set the mission, vision, and values, and all the things that we normally do, and I think that's very important. I wanted to make sure that it was very clear to everyone in the company what we value. And I would guess if you have value statements like honesty, integrity, all that stuff, which is great, I wonder how many employees can recite that to you. So I want to make it easy to understand so that we can live it. So we came up with our purpose statement and what we call our 4 pillars: client, employee, company, community. And we have statements under each. And it's about how we serve our clients. Like be responsive, take care of them, add value. Employee, take care of each other. Company, think long term for the benefit of the company. Okay? And last, community, like serve our community. Very simple, right?
Right.
It's not like fancy MBA words. It's just, it is what it is, like how we should live every day. That took Q, honestly, 2-3 years to catch on. People are like, what? What pillars? Like, are we building something? Like, what are these? What does it mean? And I knew it caught on when I was talking with one of our field staff. And he said, yeah, I mean, I was, serving my community over the weekend. That's part of our pillar, community pillar. Like,
Yeah, you
whoa.
guys do an excellent job. I see the amount of impact you make on your community and the people that you guys have. I mean, I
thanks.
see all the Washington Post, USA Today, top workplaces. Sort of envious of all the accolades, but well deserved, and that really explains why the company is so highly regarded in the community in the local Washington D.C. area.
Yeah, appreciate that. I think we're not without all the issues that companies have.
Sure.
Right? It's just it is what it is. I think it's important for us to all understand though where we're headed. All right, even we may like stray away from these things a little bit, but it's okay because we're focused on where we're headed. Clearly, having that purpose.
So clearly, you're headed forward in the organization. So you come on board. In 2015, you become the CEO.
Right.
Was that something that was determined at the start of your second stint at ATCS, or was that something that kind of became sort of an apparent heir to lead the company to the next chapter of this organization?
Yeah. Bill had offered the second time that we can make you the CEO apparent, right? Make it very known to the company that he's going to take over. I was going to take over. I told him I don't want that. Maybe I was a little cocky or something, but I was like, no, I'm going to be the CEO. I'm going to earn it.
Uh-huh.
So that was kind of the notion. And then, of course, before he retired, we set up a succession plan. So that was known.
So what was that like? I know you had mentioned, you go from having a leader that you're trying to make an influence, but you still have someone that you can bounce ideas off of and talk to. And earlier in our conversation, you talked about as a CEO, it is sort of a lonely spot to be in. Yeah. How has that transition been? Tell me a little bit about that.
I think for CEOs, when I first became CEO in 2015, I called up as many CEOs as I knew at that time. And I will tell you, and I mentioned this to you in other conversations, not a single person turned me down to meet for lunch or dinner.
Oh, yeah.
I would just call. Hey, you're CEO of ABC Engineering. I'm Young Ho Chang. I just became CEO. Can I buy you lunch so I can pick your brain? And these are our competitors, and every single one of them. Of course, it was amazing. So that's what I did. I just kept doing these things, gained a little weight in the process, but I had a lot of fun just talking with people. So that also allowed me, Q, to make sure that I am there for anyone else who may have just become a CEO.
You know, it's interesting because I did the same thing to you, and you did return the favor, and you did meet with me.
Yeah.
And I learned so much because we shared, where can I learn to become a CEO or be a better CEO?
Right.
And yeah, you definitely have impacted me on that. So that's a great story there.
I think for us, Q, as you know, the burden that we carry is we can limit the growth of the company
Right.
by not growing. Like if we don't grow, we're limiting our company.
Yes.
So that's tremendous pressure.
Yeah.
So we have to continue to grow, either
Absolutely.
by, reading, talking with
Yeah,
folks.
you gave me all these recommendations
Right.
of books, which I still have. Thank you, and you delivered it to me at my house. I won't forget that. Let's talk a little bit about the company,
Okay.
because I'm interested to know the growth story. You must have started somewhere from doing CEI type of work to being part of, more strategic thinking, private public partnership type of work in the billions of dollar programs, and actually having a seat at the table there. How does a company that is so small get to where you're at today?
There's a lot of luck involved. I hate to say that's a strategy, but
I don't know about luck.
I think, first of all, you have to have a vision of where you want to be. And, we just launched last year our 10-year vision plan. And we can talk a little bit more about that. But my vision is to be a premier transportation company. And being a CEI company was just a stepping stone, a very important stepping stone. So traffic, I love traffic engineering. It's near and dear. I want to make sure that we're a premier, traffic firm. And now I feel like we're one of the top design firms, environmental, program management, of course. So all that requires you to have talent. So you think about what draws top talent, especially for a smallish firm. What we do is we have an ownership program in the company to really enable folks to have equity stake in the company. And I think that's our secret sauce. I mean, I'll just throw it out there. And it's easy to say, hard to execute, right? Because there are a lot of nuances and so forth. And this is something that Bill started. I can't take credit because that attracted me to ATCS as well, to be ultimately an owner one day. That, like, you're working for yourself at that point.
Right.
So we were able to attract a lot of talent because of that.
Well, tell me a little bit about that. I feel like in talking to you, much of your legacy at ATCS seems to be centered around culture, having full commitment from people, full buy-in. Tell the audience, like, how is your company structured? Why is that so important to you? And tell us about your secret sauce.
Yeah, you kind of learn as you go. There are so many books, as you know. There's so many books on how to do, this and that. I think what we have found is it starts and stops with people, right? So you can get great projects, work for great clients, be financially successful, but that center point of that hub is
People.
your folks, right? And you think about, how do you attract and retain top talent? Pay them more money, offer great benefits, of course. But how is that different than any other firm that's out there? Everyone uses the same strategy, because we've got smart people. So then you have to look for the things that are a little bit intrinsic value for people. And it's not going to attract everyone, right? There are people who are like, oh, what do you mean? I don't really, I want to be recognized for my own individual performance, and that's all I care about. They don't
Your
come to
company is not
ATCS.
meant for not for everyone.
It's okay, and that's okay. And they'll flourish somewhere else. But that's very important to us, and we reinforce it. If we see behavior that's not aligned with that, then we confront it. We call it carefront. Confront sounds really aggressive. So we care about you, so we're going to confront you, and we're going
I love
to
that.
address that
Carefront.
issue.
Maybe make that no,
Yeah.
Carefront did.
So again, it's setting that vision, not making it complicated, reinforcing it. It's just a virtuous cycle that you have, right?
Are you hiring the top talent because you're offering path to ownership? Do you feel like that's worked out for you and your organization?
I think that's a big part of it.
big part of it.
And part of that, Q, is some people just don't know. Like when I came out of VDOTS, if someone said, "Oh, you can get equity ownership," I'm like, "Well, what's my pay?"
Right.
Right? I had no idea what you're talking about. So there's an education component of it as well. And some people just, it doesn't matter to them. It's about doing certain work and getting paid certain way, and ownership is not that important, and it's okay. Yeah, because eventually they're going to understand. Wow, that was a great opportunity.
Yeah, I definitely think that your people that I've encountered and spoken with, they have the owner mindset. They do.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and so that's been great, pleasant to work with. I'd love to just get your take on the state of the industry. Like, what do you think some of the challenges that we're facing today?
Yeah, I think first of all, especially in transportation space, but construction in general, I think it's one of these once in generation moment where there's so much opportunity, and I think as an industry, as a profession, I think we should be very clear on our expectations of being professionals in this industry. And let me explain a little bit more. There are times where our clients, you have a variety of clients, and some clients really appreciate and value the kind of work that you do. And they're willing to compensate you properly as professionals, right? Unfortunately, there are also clients that think we do almost like commodity work.
Right.
And we're not a commodity, flip-flop boys, as some people call them, right? Like, this is a profession. So I think, again, in a way that makes sense and it's professional, we need to clarify to clients that we deserve certain level professional, compensation in our contracts and so forth, so that we can hire the top people. We can make sure that they're fully qualified. Right. And to that point, I think the biggest challenge for us, or certainly for ATCS, is resources, right? The war on talent, as some people call it.
I talk to a lot of people about the labor shortage issue, not enough engineers. We have a different, slightly nuanced take because we are so heavily in construction. But I think engineering also as well, especially in our industry, in the construction and engineering design industry, right? Oftentimes, we're like on the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to our profession because we're competing with cybersecurity, technology, AI, and doctors and lawyers are always going to be obviously what a lot of people gravitate to. What do you think we can do as an industry to be an advocate at an early age to say, like, this is one of the largest industry in the world, these are things that are crucial to our quality of life. What do you think we can do as an organization to kind of send that message to young people, parents?
It's a very layered issue. And I think sometimes, we want to say, hey, let's develop the STEM program at the high school level, junior, middle school, all that stuff. And those are all really important things. I think our biggest opportunity is in minority and women engineers, because they're vastly underrepresented. And also, I'll just throw it out. I think international students, attracting international students into the country.
No, I think the international student has to be part of the equation. We have so many countries that are more than capable of doing the work here, but because of the visa and limitations of those programs, we're a shortage of talent.
Right.
Like you hit the nail on the head. I think that we're essentially competing against each other,
Right.
and while at the same time, our services are being commoditized. So it's a double whammy, and it's a very major challenge. I think
really
it's
is.
important to bring that up.
And, through my involvement with Virginia Tech College of Engineering, I mean, that's one of the things that we look at all the time, the students coming in. How do we attract some of those students? And I know at Virginia Tech, we have a Virginia Tech Advantage program to really get the underrepresented students a path by offering multi-year scholarships, for example. It's great to offer scholarship, but then what about next year?
Right.
You want to have some security behind that. So that's a big push. I don't want to keep plugging Virginia Tech, but I think
No,
all the
you can
universities.
absolutely plug in Virginia Tech. Absolutely.
right.
We are a Virginia Tech friendly podcast, by the way.
As leaders of our respective firms, I mean, look for those. I mean, we were involved with ACE mentoring. We sponsor Genesis, which is they bring in underrepresented high school students. We have 2 right now as interns. So those are, they're small, but if every company
Yes.
does that, can you imagine how many more people would get into our space, our industry?
Absolutely.
Well, I know, Q, you're very involved with the construction management program there, the smart buildings,
Yes.
and all the other things. So that's pretty sexy, right? Not that we have to kind of dress it up, but really, in my opinion, it's all about innovation. And I think students are turned on by innovation. How do we find ways to continue to push our industry forward through innovation and technology?
Earlier in our conversation, you had talked about how one of the challenges we're facing is resources and the commoditization of our services, and we can all do a better job in being a better advocate about who we are. And historically speaking, there's been one proven solution that combats commoditization of anything, and that's innovation. And you can look across the board from grocery stores to like the Walmarts and the Amazons of the world to bookstores. We need to put more investments into innovation. The construction engineering industry, it lags far behind any other industry in R&D, in all the innovation, and the survival of what we do sort of depends on it. And so if I can just put a plug in there to kind of share with everyone that innovation has to be at the center of anything that has to do with making what we do more valuable. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm kind of blown away by that thought because I'll be honest with you, I never thought about it in that distinct way, but it makes perfect sense. And I'm kind of thinking now about like what policies do we have at federal and state level to encourage that? If anything, it's going the other way. You're actually getting punished for trying to be innovative and spending, money on, R&D, right? So we're kind of going away from the things that we should be actually heading toward.
Right.
Yeah, that's very intriguing. I'm going to have to think about that.
Yeah, well, we can spend all day talking about it. I do want to go back to sort of culture. I've spoken with you so many times, and I'm seeing like this interwoven theme within your organization and your passion for culture. How has that journey been within your organization, coming from a small business where everybody knows the names of their family members, their cousins, to an organization now where it's much larger? How do you maintain that culture?
Yeah, It's really timely question for us. So a couple of years ago, when we started putting out our 10-year vision, and we talked about our growth, and one central theme, every conversation was, how do we keep our culture intact? When we're 4 times our size, how do you ensure our culture is the same? And I'm like, well, I just assume it will be, right? So then we had to write it down. Like when you have to write down like what your culture is, like I think everyone knows, we're like, whatever. And now our culture is described as caring, learning, and performing organization. Like we had to write it down so that when people, leave and retire and all that, it's like, what is our culture? Well, we want to make sure fundamentally everyone understood what we stood for. And I don't know if I'm sure you've heard Jim Collins talk about genius of the A&D. And he talks about how you can take seemingly opposite ends of the spectrum, like being a caring, family-oriented company and a high-performing company. Seeming like, oh, no, if you care for people, you can't take right action.
Right.
Yeah, you have to sacrifice certain things. Or if you're highly performing, you can't care about your folks, right? So we said no. And it's not a balancing. We want to do all those things, all 3 things well.
Right.
It's hard. It's really hard. But we're aligned as an organization.
That is great. That is great. So any lessons learned during your, and you guys are continually growing.
Yeah.
You guys are performing, you're caring, and you're learning. Any thoughts in your since you've put that in place? Any lessons learned or any things that you can impart as I'm writing all these notes down to maybe implement into our organization?
I think the biggest thing for me is not to get overly excited about episodic things. Like you're going to have disappointments. You're going to have a valued talent leave the company. And I'll tell you, every time that happens, it hurts me personally. Like, oh, I thought we treated her so well, yet she still leaves, right? But at the same time, always have a long view, right? There was a reason. And we're one of these firms, and maybe you two also, people come back.
Yes.
We have amazing number of, like me, right?
Yes.
And we have an amazing number of return employees. And I look at it as they're like our best because they know what it's like.
On the other side.
And then they still chose to come back.
Yes.
Right? And I love telling those stories. I think it comes down to, as a CEO, don't panic. Unless the building's on fire, there's no need to yell or, I think we just have to think long term.
Speaking of staying calm, were you always calm? What is your leadership style? Or has it evolved, I guess?
Oh, absolutely. It has to evolve. It has to evolve. You just have to find your own authentic self, right? But also know that you got to continue to grow. And for me, it's servant leadership is a perfect description. Of course, I didn't coin that, but servant leadership perfectly describes what I aim to become. And that means as a leader, you set the vision and the culture of your company. And as a servant, you get out of the way and you serve the people of the company. I think it just describes it perfectly. You're not abdicating your leadership role because you have to set the vision and the goal, okay? And then you get the heck out of the way.
We're kind of coming to sort of the near end of our conversation, and I'm interested to know what you think the future holds, first for the industry and second for the company and third for you on a personal level.
We're seeing quite a bit of consolidation through both strategic large companies acquiring smaller companies and also private equity. I think a lot of the MBAs think the engineers can't run a business. Like they can be much more efficient, right? I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think it loses a certain aspect of being independent, being innovative in our own way, of taking care of like staff in a certain way. I think we'll probably see that change.
Yeah, so you're like us. You rather bet on yourself and your team before being, under the reins of private equity.
I firmly believe companies should be run by people who know the industry.
I know the industry.
I mean, you see that with doctors. They are frustrated because it's run by MBAs. I don't mean to harp on the MBAs, but just people who don't really understand, like, why are doctors doctors? Because they care for people. Why are engineers engineers? Because we want to build things. We want to make the world safer, cleaner, all those things. But when you start injecting other interests, financial interests, in front of other things, I think it's going to change the industry.
I mean, it's nuanced. There are a lot of equity out there that really does allow the organization to run by the leaders of the organization.
And I hope it doesn't sound like I'm, saying anything about the private equity. I mean, they are helping firms that they may not have other options. Right? I mean, and that's on us. If you don't plan for the future for your company and your folks, you're limited in terms of what actions you can take.
What is in store for ATCS? Give us a little window into your 10-year vision, maybe a crystal ball that you might have.
Yeah. So 10 years, we're focusing on 3 areas: being preeminent in everything we do, okay, and being growth-oriented. I firmly believe if you don't grow, you're going to die. And what I mean by that is if you don't give people opportunity to advance in a company, you're going to lose good people, okay? And you're going to lose your good people first. You can't have an organization wait for somebody to die or, leave before I get that spot. You need to offer multiple spots. And when you do that, the only way to do that is to grow. Right? And then continue to focus on our culture. So it's pretty exciting, I think there's a lot of, especially our younger managers, younger leaders who are very excited about how they can shape the future.
And tell me a little bit about your personal goals and what the future holds on a personal level.
I'm at a certain point in my career after 37 years. There are other things I want to do. I love, like I said, I love my job. I love our industry. I love the profession. But maybe there are other things that I can contribute, outside of civil engineering and transportation. So I've been reading a lot on that topic as well. And as a matter of fact, last night we were in a book club, and we were discussing about like the next chapter, what that means.
I mean, your wealth of experience and knowledge and your journey, the story in and of itself is inspiring to many people. So I can see you just thriving in just being engaged in the community, being engaged in the industry. And I see that continuing, making a major impact. So as we end, I want to give you the opportunity to kind of give any lasting remarks and any thoughts that you might have.
First of all, I love this format. I would have never thought of it, which is, a good thing because you've thought of it. And for you to do this for our space is very unique, right? It shouldn't be unique, but it is, right? So kudos to you for even thinking of this.
Thank you.
And sharing. It's not about just doing this. It's about sharing with others, right? So maybe there are other podcasts, in our space that'll come from what you're leading, and people will say, wow, Q was an innovator, right?
Well, no, I appreciate that. I do have a passion for sharing the people as you said earlier in our conversation. But we're not just stats. We have a story. And I think any which way that we can present a story that humanizes, that resonates with people, is a win for me. And I think that, again, I was inspired when we had dinner that night and we were all going around the horn. And at the time, it was an idea that I had, which was the podcast. But I was thinking, like, if we can just share his story, I think it would be a added benefit. Even if it impacts one person, just one person, I think it would be an added benefit. So thank you for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed our conversation. So really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Q. Thanks for having me.